Hello, everyone. Welcome to IA Simplified. So, IA Simplified is a podcast series where we showcase industry leaders to discuss the impact of intelligent automation, particularly around the SME and the mid-market financial services, healthcare, and other related fields. I'm your host, Tulani Jayetikolo. And today on this episode, I'm actually joined by Samuel Best from GM Financial. So Samuel is the VP of Business Automation at GM Financial. I'm really excited to talk to you today. But today, before I get on with the introductions as well, I want to we're going to be discussing, RPA maturity. And we're also going to be talking about, fueling innovation at the RPA Center of Excellence level. So Samuel, thanks for coming on IA Simplified. We're really happy to have you here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So Samuel, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Definitely appreciate the opportunity to tell my story a little bit. You're right. I am at GM Financial, and that GM stands for General Motors. So we are the wholly owned captive company for General Motors, and I am on the business automation team, which really our job is to use technology, really RPA and some others to remove friction from some of our internal processes and improve the customer experience. So that's what we do. I have been here coming up on 4 years later this year. But overall, I've been in the automation space for the last 9 years. It's something that I was introduced to about 9 years ago in an operations center, and where I started building bots myself. And then it just kind of grew from there. And then I did a stint in consulting. And then I found my way here to General Motors Financial. So I have a lot of different experience, seeing a lot of different things in the automation industry. So I'm really happy to chat about that today.
Wow, that's exciting. I think I'm really glad you kind of said your level of experience because I was gonna pick your brain on something very important today. The first thing I want to pick up your brain on is, when we talk about RPA maturity, everyone is a bit there's a lot of it's vague really because you're talking either in terms of the number of bots you have in production, the number of processes you've automated, and the kind of transactions you've gotten from those bots as well. Could you give me a take on what's your definition of RPA maturity?
Yeah, that's excuse me. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm thinking when you said that, I'm thinking back to a particular story where I was chatting with someone and a log on to a system. They were counting as an automation or a bot, right? Which I probably wouldn't quantify it that way. So yes, even when you hear somebody say 50 automations or 100 bots or whatever, um, there's a lot of ambiguity with even those terms. So I'll just kind of share what we use here at General Motors Financial is that yes, we do track the number of automated processes we do. However, they're kind of unique. It's a unique automated process that we have provided for the business. Another big thing that we do is transactions processed. These are how many transactions that humans were doing that now the automations have done. So that's kind of a big metric to see how much your automated workforce is doing. And then another big one is that might not be as common is employees benefited. Um, so one of the big value propositions of RPA and automation in general is that hey, we're automating the mundane to free folks up to do more value add activity like take care of our customers, problem solve, critical think, those types of activities. So that begs the question, how many of those employees have been freed up to do that? So that's what employees benefited is. And we have over 1,000 employees, which is over 10% of our workforce that have been freed up to some capacity. Maybe it's 4 hours a day, maybe it's 30 minutes a day, some capacity to do that. So I would say first, you need to understand what you're trying to achieve and what's important to you. I would say with just like any software, the buying side is the easy part. You buy something, you set it up, you build a couple things, right? But to really go to the maturity curve, you really have to have a set of governance, best practices, standards around that, and really treat it like you would anything else. Really have to put the program rigor around it to be able to scale across your enterprise. And I think that's why we see some challenges, right? I think people on the buy side are, um, buy it, see a little early progress, which is great, but it gets fragmented when it tries to go across the enterprise because they don't have some of those basic building blocks in place to scale across the enterprise.
That's interesting, and I think I'm actually going to piggyback on some of the things you've said. So let's unpack, in terms of bots and in terms of, let's say, the number of bots. You've been in different automation programs at this point. There's the one from AT&T where you had, over 1,000 bots in production. There's the one, there's also, you're talking in terms of hundreds when you look at, GM Financial as well. But how do you define success? Your success would have changed from, very early on in your career when people talked about automation. So how do you define your success and how do you measure it?
Yeah, and how we define success specifically, because it's hard to say what does a successful program look like because it's going to vary by the size of your organization, what industry you're in, but also what's important to you. So I would really be focused if starting a new program or whoever is maybe going down this journey to think what outcome do you want to produce? And for us at General Motors Financial, again, it was really important to how do we make our processes more efficient? How do we do work more efficiently? And then how do we improve the customer experience? So at a global level, right? So not just serving one area of the business, how do we do that across the GM financial enterprise? So that's what we were really focused on. And some of those metrics that I talked about, transactions, employees benefited, those are types of things that help measure that. And we have some other metrics as well too, but those are some of the big ones that we help gauge that because to us, that's what success looks like, right? Make our processes better, um, perform them more efficiently with higher quality, and then improve the customer experience as well.
I think I like the old definition of your success. Well, I wanted to talk about there's a particular research that everyone banks on, and that research is by Forrester that says there's less than 20% of bots in production, and this is, I think, the if I quote them right, they said it's fewer company, like a lot of the RPA implementations has employed 10 bots in production. But what I wanted to talk about in terms of that is, what are the challenges that companies are facing to actually go beyond, let's say, 10 bots? How do they go from 10 to hundreds or to thousands? What are the challenges you're saying?
Yes, great question, and I think that kind of touches on a little bit what I was saying on the buy side a little bit, is that I think RPA, I think it's starting to come back down to earth as far as a reality check, but I think earlier on in the day specifically, it was described as a big easy button that you don't need IT people, you don't need technical people. An accountant all by him or herself can automate, 75% of their job, and it's only going to take them a couple days to do it. I think we all know that that's not realistic, but I still think it is oversold as a really easy solution that doesn't need the help of partners. And what I've learned is that anything that you do that is going to be big, you need to collaborate. You need to have partners. Just think about any IT application system or any software that you use that a lot of people use, that your customers use. A lot of different business units support that, right? You have business users using it. You have IT that's supporting it. I'm sure there's cyber that's taking a look, and there's all these other groups that have a hand in that to make it successful. So I think the problem is that you can get away with that when you only have a handful of bots, right? But when you start trying to expand to other business units, you try to start expanding globally, you're going to need partners to come along with you and help scale this like a real program would. Another thing that really uh, uh, dampers people's journey in the beginning is just like with any other application, you have to find a way to continue to build and maintain at the same time. When you have 5 to 10 bots, the maintenance burden is not that big. But once you start having more than that and you have resources decked to both maintenance and building something, that's going to take progress off building or maintaining, depending on what you have the bandwidth to do. So, just again, like we have any uh, enterprise application, there's usually dedicated support to help with that, right? So that way, features and enhancements and stuff can continue to get developed. So, I would say some of those general practices that have helped software scale for years could be applied to RPA as well. And I think that's why some folks struggle early on because they treat it as maybe the easy button, right? And that's it's not easy, but it's not hard either if you practice the right program discipline.
Interesting. And I think there's another. It's something I want to discuss with you, and that's regarding low hanging fruit. When people look at RPA or before they approach intelligent automation, there are, set of processes people always tend to automate, especially around, Excel and some of these processes. How do companies scale beyond the low hanging fruit? How do they become more advanced in their practice? What would be your, step by step process or thought process towards that?
Yeah, so great question. So my step-by-step process on kind of what to tackle first. Definitely agree with you. Low-hanging fruit. Hey, it's this box of a process that we're trying to do, maybe Excel, maybe moving data from one system to another. We haven't been able to do it before. Let's tackle this. So I think that's important. Now to move beyond that, right? Because they call it low-hanging fruit for a reason. It's not going to be there forever. Once it's picked, it's picked. So really what we try to focus on is looking at the end-to-end process. Okay. So if somebody comes to us or a business partner comes to us with an idea or we see an opportunity, it's not just identifying and working with this part of the process. It's understanding what's upstream of that process and understanding what's downstream of that process because there may be opportunity to automate a lot more than what we're taking a look at right then. So I would say that's one thing. Also, working at a global company, we do a lot of the same processes in different regions and things like that. So if you have one particular process, and again, you just looked upstream and downstream, is there opportunity to reuse that maybe in another area that does a similar process? Okay. So I would say that's one thing that's really helped us a lot is really dig into the process, look at it end to end to really evaluate those full opportunities.
Um, So I'm glad you talked about opportunities, and everyone that's been on IA Simplified, I always tend to ask, questions about opportunities from their own area. Being in the auto finance area, what would you expect a lot of, say companies within doing something quite similar to really tap in? Where are automation opportunities within the auto finance industry?
Yes, great question. And when I think about automation opportunities, my mind immediately jumps to the customer experience. Um, when you think about buying a vehicle, leasing a vehicle, there's a lot of opportunity for the way things have changed over the years, right? Where consumers, especially with the global pandemic that's happened in the last couple of years, consumers are shifting a lot of habits online. There's a lot more on-demand type of expectation from consumers as well. Um, so I think there's a lot of opportunities for the auto finance space in that area, and then also how we service our customers as well too. Calling in, being put on hold, transferred around, days to take issues. That's or days to resolve issues. That's just something that's not going to be acceptable anymore going forward for a customer experience standpoint. So we need to figure out how can we give customers self-service tools to solve problems themselves if they want to they want to chat, if they want to call, we're of course here for them, but how can we solve their issues and help them with what they want to do? That's really where I see a lot of opportunity for us to set ourselves apart in the auto finance space.
Cool. I'm going to ask a very tricky question, and this is around the center of excellence. I know I've heard you talk about center of excellence, having that in place. But I want to put a twist to this, especially when it comes to center of excellence, because it's often seen as a hub for internal capabilities, RPA capabilities. But is it possible for a center of excellence to actually foster like innovation, particularly around new products, new services? Are they able to help out in terms of those areas?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And that, I mean, that's something that we do here. We have a centralized team of folks on the automation team that do a lot of product management stuff, and then our technical partners that this is our full time job. This is what we work on. So we're really the ones, setting the standards for what we're doing today, working with the business to automate certain things, but really going out ahead of the journey and trying to blaze a new trail to see, is there new technology that we should be using? Are there new experiments and use cases that we should be checking out? So absolutely, I think the COE can play a huge role in innovation, because what they're able to do is innovate and experiment, and then maybe set some framework on, hey, this is a new technology or this is a new use case, and then push that to everyone else that they're then able to leverage for their areas. So absolutely, I see that as a big action item that the COE can be doing.
So I was going to ask again in terms of, when we think about innovation, we often say different things stifle innovation. And one is, when senior management are not really part of this, innovation plan. Um, should innovation be coming from, a bottom-up approach where the COE they're leading on this innovation plan, or should it be coming from, top down, like, senior management trying to enforce some of this innovation?
It's a great question. Um, w- Coming top down only never works. You have to have buy-in with the people, or it's not going to be successful. Now, doing things grassroots without any support from leadership isn't going to work either, right? So I would say it doesn't have to be an edict, a top-down edict, but there has to be support, right? What we have done at General Motors Financial is a concept called citizen innovation, which when we first started the journey almost 4 years ago, it was, okay, how do we build solutions for our business partners, right? But now that we've matured, it's how do we not only build, but how do we equip and empower business users to innovate right where they're at? So really what it takes is kind of that, what you were talking about, the top down, or maybe a COE innovation type role, and it democratizes that and pushes that down to the lower levels of the organization, like grassroots. And now you equip people to innovate right where they're at. So I think that's a huge important part of innovation. Just like customer experience. Customer experience is not the job of a customer experience agent. It's, of course, that's their job, but it's everybody's job to take care of the customer. Same way, just like innovation, it's not one group's job to innovate; it's everyone's job to innovate, and that's something that we've tried to help facilitate.
I mean, I love that concept. It's more like a team. It's a team sport as opposed to one person's responsibility. So I really love that concept. And I think we're running out of time because I really enjoyed having this conversation. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you. I always ask this question: what's your advice for large firms or SMEs? You might not be in the SME space, but what would be your advice for this set of groups to trying to invest in RPA or intelligent automation in the next 12 months?
Yes, if you're just kind of starting out, or you're investing, or maybe you're going to expand your investment, I would say the first important thing is know what you're trying to accomplish. Um, I think a lot of times we can do blind investing and not really sure what we're trying to do. So really be strategic in this. Put together a business plan. Try to understand, here are the 3 or 4 things that we're trying to accomplish. Maybe it is improve the customer experience and improve efficiencies in internal operations like it is for us, right? Um, Chart those out, and then come up with a plan to get there. I think just putting money at this isn't going to work. You definitely need a strategy and a plan. And I would say invest the time to do that, because it's only going to pay dividends for you later.
Because we're coming to the end of this episode, how do people reach out to you to connect with your content and your beliefs?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn's probably the greatest place. So feel free to send me a message or send me a connection request. I'd be happy to connect with you all and continue the conversation.
Oh, brilliant. Just to wrap it up, the video transcription will be available on our website, www.rpajargonbuster.com. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you definitely see the video transcription as well. And it was lovely to have you, Samuel, on IA Simplified. And as always, if you wanted to talk to someone about intelligent automation within the SME and mid-markets, feel free to shoot us an email as well. But all the links will be associated with the video. And just to wrap it up, stay informed. Until next time.